short list, even though it looks long, but it is a short list, was get some of those facts and trends together and in my own mind look at what we wanted to go from to where we wanted to go to. So this is future perfect thinking, that you can see even in this list what you're starting to do is you can create some scenarios around that. So, and this was very much my assessment. So typically when you'd be doing this, you'd be doing it in project teams, you'd be doing it with community members, you'd have possibly a community reference group or a planning group within whoever your client is. So this is just my perception. But I would hope that you'd be much more collaborative than I was. This was just for my preparation. So, you know, and I find it helpful to do a from-to list table like this. Mostly that's so that I am focused, because I'll have lots of ideas scattering around in my head. And also it's a very useful checklist I have found when I'm going to try and test out the story I'm going to do, because if I've done this as a tool for myself, when I'm telling the story, I actually just tick off, oh, yes, I've included that. Oh, no, there's nothing in that. I better write a sentence around that. And so the from-to method, for me anyway, is a really simple thing to do, and it's then in application, it can become an evaluative tool. So if you're going back and working with a community or with an organisation or your client, you know, 3 years later, you go back to this piece of paper and you say to yourself, oh, right, well, we did this, and we were able to do that, but these are the areas we still haven't done. So I tend to use this as an evaluative tool for myself, and that's been quite successful from my own point of view as a tool. It also helps when you go back from an evaluative point of view to identify where some of the barriers might have been. So if we look at the status snapshot from IAP2's point of view, and we come into an environment where you know, unpredictable cash flow, well, that, you know, is going to be quite challenging in this economic environment. So what are the methods that we need to do for secure cash flow? And that's when you can also start thinking about being very creative around scenarios for those things, not just being static in time and space. Okay. So we want to be an international, moving around, recycling ideas, renewing ideas, and certainly be international. And so this next slide was one I showed in Glasgow when I was doing my storytelling, and I'm showing it to you now because if I'm working with a big group or in an environment where, you know, you have a platform and a speaker, I will tend to use slides, not words, to go behind my storytelling. I'd much prefer it though if I'm just sitting in a group just talking to people and like you reading a story. So when I did the story in Glasgow, I told the story, and I think some of you may well have actually been at the conference, so you may recall that. And it was very much a narrative. And when I use that, if I'm working with a group as a consultative tool, the questions I ask, I tell the story, and then I ask, what did you notice? And people in Glasgow said, well, I noticed there were, you know, thousands of members, and there's no way we're going to be able to do that. So people were able to identify what they liked and didn't like, what they thought was achievable, what they don't think is achievable. You also ask questions about what's been missed out. What do you think we didn't pay attention to? And from a consultant's point of view, I always find that the most helpful piece of feedback, because when you've done your analysis and your trending, it's quite easy to forget something that may have been, or you just haven't paid attention to something that is really important and to those communities or those projects. And I do find that that's where you often get those cultural subtleties or local politics coming out that you may not have picked up if you were just doing a desktop analysis. And so I found that a very helpful tool in would typically get people to break into groups or into pairs, identifying what they noticed and what they've missed out. So that's how it basically works. That's how I'm using those two frameworks, the scenario planning and the future perfect thinking. And you might like to do this for yourselves. And given you are such a homogenous group, the Wild Rose is an entity of its own, that may actually be an activity for your own planning that you'd like to do, and the story that you might like to write for your own chapter or your latest project. And one of the things I did with a group of staff that I had worked with on and off for about 5 years is I got them to write a future story for their organisation individually. And then they provided that to me, and then I synthesised it. And that was another way. I mean, I've only ever done that once, but that was also very entertaining and very interesting. So I'd encourage you to think about how you could apply those in your own setting.